So I'm going to let Rachel explain, and Rachel, when you finish, you can pass it to everyone else so they can explain how finding and living your own truth it means to you guys, and how we can help our audience as well. And over to you, Rachel.
To me or to Nick, as it was Nick's.
Nick, go on. I'm being polite. I'm starting with a woman. I'm being polite.
Oh, okay. Sorry, from what I just understood, it was Nick's egg. So
I'm just being polite, Rachel.
okay,
Thank you.
Carry on, Nick. Go
on. No, that's great. When I saw the topic, I thought, oh, what a coincidence. This sounds exactly like what I would like to talk about. Turns out it's not a coincidence at all. It was picked for me, but I appreciate that very much. Thanks, Nomsa. So yeah, as I mentioned, I was a police officer up until just very recently. So as my life unfolded, basically in early 2020, I started, I mean, it's been building for a long time, but in early 2020, I really felt out of alignment. My work life, I was in a position within policing that I was coming to the end of my time in that unit, and I had no prospects for where I wanted to go in policing. I'd kind of lost my passion. I was really beaten down by the system, by the justice system, the lack of, I guess, teeth that it had, and I just got sick of watching guilty people walk away and hurting innocent people, and I just felt really frustrated with the whole system, and it was coming to a head in this early 2020 area. So around that time, I started meditating daily, and I had a major diet change, and so that all coincided, and it really quickly after that time period, my career went from working very frontline in a gang suppression team, so working with basically the worst that our society has to offer in terms of people that hurt other people and are just generally pretty bad people. I went from that, and my sleep was falling apart, and so had to get a doctor's note to restrict my hours at work. And so I went into a unit where I was working from home, and then this was all during the pandemic as well. So working from home and not having to deal with the public directly was perfect for me. And then George Floyd happened in the States, and then that online world became terrible. I would rather be dealing with gang members face to face any day rather than dealing with that online world during that defund the police movement and the Black Lives Matter stuff that happened in the summer of 2020. And then into the fall of that same year, I just had enough. This proverbial straw that broke the camel's back happened to me, and I had a breakdown at work, dealing with a suicidal female that had messaged the police service that I was working for. Anyways, so I call this breakdown, it's definitely my breakthrough now, looking back in hindsight. So it was everything that I was doing, not living my own truth, had finally unraveled. And then also it forced me to deal with all of the traumas that I'd collected during my career in policing. So it all absolutely had to happen. And then, so fast forward, I was dealing with my traumas, getting counseling, and doing all the things that that I was being asked to do and that I needed to do. And then the pandemic was happening, and the vaccine rollout, and then I had major issues with that, forcing people to do things that weren't in alignment for themselves. And so lucky for me, I was on the sidelines at that point, truly grateful for that. And then the Freedom Convoy happened here in Canada in early 2022 and gave me hope for the future, gave me for the first time in a long time, I felt proud to be Canadian. I felt a hope for the future. And then our government did what they did. So and for those that maybe don't know exactly how that all happened, so a group of truckers started on the west coast of Canada and went in a convoy right across our country, which is thousands of kilometers. It's just a huge landmass, and ended up in our nation's capital, which is Ottawa, Ontario, and wanted to talk to the government face to face about the mandates that they'd brought in and bring these issues to a head. So the mandates were preventing truckers from crossing the border and making a living, and also which prevented the citizens of this country from getting what they needed. So they were protesting those mandates, and then the government intervened in policing operations. So policing is supposed to be separate from politics. And what happened in Ottawa earlier this year was the exact opposite of that. So politicians were muddling in policing operations. And what I saw was the Ottawa Police Service specifically, they started seizing fuel from these truckers. And this is in the middle of January in Canada, so it's cold for those of you that don't know, or can be very cold. And for me, it was a line in the sand for me, where now all of a sudden we had the police infringing on people's rights, rights to assemble, right to protest, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all of those fundamental freedoms were now being trampled by the police. And I started in policing to help people. That's why I started. And now I was seeing people having their rights trampled by the police based on political influence. And it just was very wrong. And so having all those things going on, I recorded a video where I wrote in my journal one night after I put my kids to bed, just about how I was feeling about what was going on in Ottawa. And after I finished writing it, I thought, I'm just going to record this quick. So I videoed it. And then after I was done that, I just had this, I guess, nudge to, I just need to post this to a group that I was part of at the time, a group chat that was called Police on Guard. And so it was a Telegram channel where other police officers who were thinking the same way that I was could share, basically. So I posted my video in there, and then I went to bed. And then I woke up the next morning and found that my video had been shared outside of that chat and had gained some traction. So ended up getting quite a few views, a few 100,000. I'm not sure exactly how many. And really, it was just me speaking my truth. And it felt really good, and it garnered a lot of support from all over the world. People, and obviously not my intention. My intention in making the video was to just a message to other police officers, just to think about what they were doing in those situations where they're dealing with peaceful protesters. But obviously that wasn't the audience that it ended up reaching. I got shared outside that widely, and just overwhelming support from the public. I guess just got a face to their cause and how they were thinking that time, and how it just seemed wrong. And it just was me speaking my truth again. The police service that I was working for at the time didn't have so much support for it. I definitely got some phone calls from my employer, and then I got ordered by a registered mail letter to cease and desist, basically from speaking my truth any further, which felt terrible, which was a huge part of my decision to eventually resign from my career, the only career I'd ever known. And so that for me was just no longer being silenced by my position and being able to speak my truth freely. And so that's what I've been doing since resigning, and that's what I continue to do in the future. And I feel like that is success, is being able to to speak your mind and just live your life in accordance with your intuition and your guidance and what feels good in your heart. And that's what I'm doing going forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. Rachel, do you have any comment or Grant?
I just want to say what a fantastic story that was. I mean, what an astounding story. Wow. I remember that time vaguely from the sidelines of being over in the UK and hearing this and hearing the debate either side. But yeah, I mean, obviously you spoke out and voted with your feet, as you say. So you did that, and you certainly seem pretty happy about your decision going forward. And I'm really pleased, Nick, to hear about your new venture with clothing, because it seems to be very, very aligned with what you're thinking. And again, it's helping people, right? That is the context of all business, I think, and any sort of social enterprise is helping people. I always say it, when we help people from the heart, people tend to pay. And that's the truth of the matter. And if your business isn't going well, it probably means that you're not marketing yourself and getting to help enough people with that particular problem. So it's a great sign that you're heading in the right direction. You're trying to find solutions. As you were years ago, you joined the police force to help people for reasons that didn't really align with your values. That you stepped away from that, and now you're repurposing your energy into helping people in a different way. So I'm very happy for you, your newfound freedom. That's what I feel like saying.
Thanks a lot, Grant. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. And yeah, I mean, that went in a completely different direction to what I thought, because for myself, finding your true value, I wrote about this in a book recently, and it was the thrust of it was about not faking it. I won't give away all the stuff, but it was about not faking it. It was about being real, being who you really are, doing things and learning what you need to do things properly is actually easier than faking it. So why people always talk about faking it, it amazes me, because I tried that years ago, and it's a really, really hard way to do it. It's far more easier to be congruent and just be who you are and doing it. Fortunately, I didn't try faking it for very long, because it was exhausting. But it was far more liberating by being who you really are. Much more fulfilling. Even if you make the odd mistake, people will forgive you if your intention's right. And it's just a much nicer way of living. So I'd employ anyone to do that. You go ahead and just be your real self. Do it with the right intention. Even if your bicycle wobbles and you fall off and graze your knees now and then, it's okay. You can get back up and do it again. But as long as you're doing it with congruency, people will feel that in your energy, in your body language, in your tone of voice. It comes through. And you'll be surprised how doors start opening for you when you actually do that from your own sense of power, from your own sense of being. It's a much better way of living. And I would urge anybody to go out there. Finding and living your own truth is a much nicer way of living. That's what I wanted to say. Rachel, what about yourself? What's your views on this?
Yeah, I think I spent most of my life not actually knowing what my truth was. It wasn't even part of my awareness growing up. I was more busy with, let's say, living life according to what I had been conditioned to live. So, for me, I always had this feeling that there was something missing. I didn't feel like I would fit in, so I desperately spent a lot of time trying to fit in, trying to be whatever successful was from an external perspective. And even if that didn't mean that it fitted with my personality, I still tried to do it because that helped me to belong somewhere. And so, yeah, the idea of having a well-paid job and being validated by others, including my family or whatever, for me, that was an important part of being successful, and being ultimately happy. But at the same time, gradually over the years, there was this other part of me that started to really grow in being dissatisfied with the way I was living my life, or participating in it. And so I spent a lot of time, trying to figure out what was it that I was missing, who was I outside of basically my upbringing and societal norms and beliefs. And that kind of became my focus, not full on. It was like a part-time thing that I dipped and dabbled. And it was when I lost my job that I'd been working here in the Netherlands for 11 years, and the way I was treated, coinciding with the loss of my best friend to breast cancer from 26 years. My whole sort of world went upside down, and that was really sort of like, it gave me a jump into, okay, what's going on? Who am I? Started to really surface. And losing my best friend was a reflection to me that, well, now I needed to be my best friend, because up until now I'd had a relationship that was not one that was very healthy, because of the beast that lived in my head. And so, yeah, I think for everybody, what does living by your truth mean can be different for everybody. But I know that my source of my sense of self-worth started to change and come from within rather than being put externally. I started to see that my thoughts and my feelings, my beliefs, are temporary experiences. They give me temporary experiences. They're not who I am. And I started to make decisions based from a place of love rather than a place of fear. And you've mentioned a couple of times, Grant, it was living I live in accordance to what I value, what my values are, not what someone else's values are. And so I'm very loyal to myself. Something very, very different, because I used to be very loyal to other people. I still am, but I put myself first. Speaking your truth, like Nick said, over the fear of is another area that has changed since becoming more living in my truth. And I also honor more of my gut feelings and my intuition alongside my analytical, but that it doesn't take prime seat and rule, because that will throw me more into into more of the lower self, if I only listen to that part of myself. So it's very different to Nick, but I think what probably we have in common is transitions have happened. Something major happened in our life that got us to kind of like wake up to, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? Can I do this differently? Yeah.
Hi guys, anyone who wants to take over? I think my children are coming in and they're gonna make a little bit of a noise.
Sure. As you guys were talking, I couldn't help but think about all these different situations and things that have happened to me and to all of us along our journey. And
Yeah, sure.
For me, it was figuring out that sometimes when those parts of your life are falling apart, sometimes that it hurts and it is uncomfortable and it doesn't feel, it just doesn't feel really good at the time, but it all needs to happen. So for me, I like Rachel, I was living someone else's dream, the society's what you're supposed to do in society, and it's the big house that we have here in North America, and the 2 new cars, and the trailer to go live like you're homeless while you pay for your big house, and like just the crazy things we do in our society. And so those things started to basically fall apart for me. So for an example, I had a fancy car that I loved, and it was a Mercedes, and it was an AMG, and it was like a dream. But that car caused me so much headache. And it was, looking back now, it was basically the universe teaching me a lesson that stuff isn't important. That stuff doesn't make you happy. And that was what I was always chasing, was that next little, dopamine hit of buying that new car or that new whatever it was. It was always something else. And it was just so temporary, and that realization that nothing external can make you happy. It all comes from within. So as those layers of my life fell apart, so first it was, it was actually a couple of vehicles that taught me a lot of lessons. And then we ended up selling our house based on it was a Facebook message. Our house wasn't even for sale. We ended up selling our house and then moving into what we thought was our dream home. But it ended up being a disaster. The whole deal ended up falling apart, and we ended up literally homeless. So that was ironic. And again, it was just another layer of what my programming and what I thought was going to make me happy was that falling apart. So while that process was happening, this deal was falling through on this property that we were buying. Certainly didn't feel good at all. But now, with a little bit of hindsight, looking back, it's exactly what needed to happen to push me past that, that former way of being or that programming. And I'm just super grateful for all these basically painful experiences that have happened to get me to a point to kind of strip me down to what truly is important. And that is, that's family, that's connection, that's speaking your truth, that's living from a place of love rather than fear. It's having compassion for other people. It's all of those things. That's what truly makes me happy, not the fancy car or the house or any of that. And so just from my perspective, if you're going through anything like that right now, just know that it's not always going to feel perfect and glorious, and there's going to be birds singing and everything's going to be great. There's going to be times when it necessarily has to be rough in order to strip those layers away. So just keep pushing, living your truth.
I agree with you guys. Yeah, sometimes, sorry, my children, they just finished school. They just like, okay, they're coming in and making noise, but I think they've gone quiet now. I agree with you guys, Nick, when you said basically you had to make a decision because you had a breakdown, and that breakdown became a breakthrough. So in life, basically, we have to go through something for us to find our own truth, to find ourselves. Because when you are comfortable, you feel that you have found yourself. You feel that basically that's the place where you need to be. But then when something happens, then it basically it changes you to basically to look at things deep. For me, basically, I was like Rachel. My parents raised me different. They raised me to live my own truth and to understand who I was. But when I left home, I think I left home when I was 18. Then I started basically trying to fit in with my friends, and in the process, I lost my identity because when you are trying to fit in, you speak like your friends, you walk like your friends, you dress like your friends, but deep down in your heart, you're frustrated, you're not happy. And then I started getting frustrated. And in the end, I was like, you know what? When I had my first daughter, I was like, you know what? Something has to change. And that something has to change. Basically, I took Paul McKenna's program, and I basically became his student just to learn basically what it means to be me and what it means to do the things that I love to do, basically living my own truth. It meant I had to walk away from the places, some of the places that were familiar to me. I had to walk away from other memories that I had created with people that were holding me back. I had to walk away from friends, the people that I thought were friends, but when I start looking deep, I'm like, if this person is my friend, they wouldn't want me to try to fit in. They won't want me to behave like them. So if my behavior is not enough for them, so why do I need to hang out with them? So I had to walk away from so many people, because there are some people, basically, I don't know if anyone has experienced this. There are some people, basically, if you can't talk like me, do things like me, you are not enough. So basically I had to walk away from those people, but then I had to go back to my childhood and look back and basically try to look at who is Nomsa and my values, my beliefs, and I had to look at the relationships that I have with people and create skills on in my work life and the relationship that I had with people, to make sure that I was living the life that I wanted. Like Nick, you had to walk away. I had to do the same. I had to break my heart. Like sometimes there are some things that you've done for a long time, and sometimes you look back and you're like, I don't want to be here. It's time for change. For me, basically, I had to walk away. I remember I walked. I was playing against Arsenal, actually, and playing against Arsenal. And then after the match, I was like to my manager, I think it's time for me to basically to retire now. That was 2009. And he was like, I didn't hear you. What did you just say? I was like, it's time for me to retire. I don't want to play football anymore. I just feel like I need some changes in my life. And I felt that there are some things I was unhappy in my relationship. I wasn't spending time with my family. I was basically spending time traveling and working. I wasn't happy. So I was like, it's time for me that I need to make some changes. But when I made some changes in my life, I became happy, because in that way, I'm looking at my life and my values and my beliefs. And Rachel, you spoke about sometimes we want people to validate who we are. I was that person that wanted people to validate. When I'm wearing a beautiful dress, even if I feel like I'm loving this dress, I'm loving my high heels, I want people to validate that actually, no, Mr. Your dress is beautiful. Instead of me basically living my own truth, embracing who I was. And Grant, you spoke about basically do things for the right intentions. And I think it's very, very important when you're doing something and do things for basically for the right intentions. Like when I'm here at Nkositalkshows, I get excited because I get to come here and share, empower people, and I get to spend time with you guys. And I get to know you guys. When I'm choosing a topic, if I can't get a reply, I basically use the personalities. I'm like, I'm with Grant, I'm with the Rachel, I'm with Nick, or I'm with Angie or Carol Ann. This one, she's like this, so she'll be happy if we talk about this. Her audience will really, really relate, because she loves to share this message with the audience. So I look at the coaches that I'm working with, and then I look at the audience, how they are passionate to share their information with the audience. And then I choose the topic. And I know that if I do that, if I send it to them, they'll be like, oh, wow, I love this. So they never complain. As long as their audience are happy and they are happy, I know that is fine. So I agree with you guys. Over to you, Nick. I don't know whether it's Nick or Grant or Rachel. Over to you guys.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that, I think from everything that we're all saying, that biggest obstacle basically is social conditioning. Because when we remove those layers, it's, the true self is there. It never went anywhere. It's not something you need to invent. It's within you. It's just, it's been, imagine it's behind a wall, and that wall is all the social conditioning. And if we follow the social norms before we listen to our own internal wisdom, then we become focused on external matrix of success rather than the feeling of fulfillment, which I've learned is so much more gratifying. It's so much more puts you in a good place, mentally, emotionally, physically. And if we are too invested in the social conditioning, that has this tendency to leave us feeling inadequate, which is why people are then looking for validation, because they're thinking, well, either I'm too much or I'm not enough. That was my big one, you know, I'm not enough. That has, you know, followed me throughout my entire life. And so, yeah, we need to, it's not a process that can be done overnight. And I think it's a psychological process that is naturally occurring. We just tend to get in the way. And some people maybe never quite really get in touch with who their true self is because they always just stand in their way. But if you can, then it's something that you will feel the difference. It's very difficult to sometimes explain to another person because again, it's all individual, but it is a feeling. And I would say, I did a little post on Instagram. It's when you bring together and they become in alignment, actually create peace, and you get that inner peace within yourself. So even when things are chaotic around you, you still have a sense of calmness. And that is probably the biggest thing that I've noticed, if I was to say, from being my true self. With all the other things that I do, it's that inner calm.
I like that. I like what you said there, H, about inner calm. I was talking about this one day this week. I can't remember which day. So I was about certain modes that you put yourself through, different mindsets. And at certain points, when I really need to think clearly, it is that calmness that I need, that quiet, that tranquility, sometimes away from the phone, certainly away from emails and things like that. And maybe being out in nature is when I get calm, I get quiet. I'm not miserable, I'm not humorous, I'm just calm and clear. Again, I think clarity would be the word which I look for. Clarity, and that's when I go to have a serious talk with myself. You know, it's one of those times when I go and do that. And for me, perhaps I inadvertently found who I was quite younger in life. Some of you may not know, I was in a rock band for quite a few years, and it was a very, very serious thing. And we was signed up to a big company, and yeah, all the stuff you hear about management rifts and all that kind of stuff, absolutely true. We had tons of that. It's a book that needs to be written at one point. I think it's just too painful to write, to be honest. But we went through that, and I was thinking about this the other day because I got interviewed on a podcast about songs of my life. So songs that were happening at a certain period of my life, and then sort of telling the story behind it. But I was in a rock band, and yes, we were signed up to a major act, and we were nearly killed in a car accident 1 week before recording. I got out lighter, but I still, I was injured quite badly. And the other guy it still has disabilities, even though you wouldn't necessarily recognize him. He was in a coma for 18 months and gradually came out and went through all the rehabilitation stuff, which seems like a million years ago now. But, he still isn't really able to work. But he's just, he gets tired easily and, stuff like that. But this is like many years on. But perhaps we found who we were when we were very young. After that, we were staggering around, pretty much shell-shocked, and it just didn't feel right to get someone to replace him. The chemistry was right, and it just felt wrong to have done anything otherwise. So we were quite young, staggering around, trying to get a real job, something we'd never really had. We had had jobs, but not like, what we call real jobs or careers before that. And reluctantly, we had to find one. And it was pretty tough. pretty tough because we had found early on what we was doing, and we had been, gone through a trauma quite early in our adult lives. Um, I I love aviation, so I've looked at the Air Force. By this time, I was just approaching maximum age limit, so it kind of really wasn't really, and there was not vacancies for what I was looking for as a pilot. They suggested something else, and it just didn't really resonate with me at that point. So that opportunity had closed, and that was a great sadness for me. So in my infinite wisdom of looking for something to replace the excitement, I, long story short, became a private investigator, and it certainly did fulfill that. I found it, I rechanneled it into a different area of life. Certainly learned an awful lot about people. And actually being in a band taught me a lot about people too. I learned an awful lot about personalities and egos and all of this stuff and how to manage and get the best from people. I certainly got advanced beyond my years, I think, from that. And as a private investigator, again, learned an awful lot. Saw a lot of great things in people and a lot of bad things too. And that's how I repurposed it into that. From that, I got into the security industry. I don't know why, but I was absolutely dedicated to it. Thought I'd be in it for 3 months, was in it for almost 10 years before starting my own company doing it. And one day I then worked my way up into a pretty senior manager in a pretty big company. And, I don't know, 150 staff, four managers, I think, under me, and maybe 40 corporate clients. One day it was early morning, quite a long way from home, in a car park, ready for some really big meeting. And this was not long before I was finishing. And my father was very ill at this point. And just as I parked the car, I remember it was a sunny morning. And I just heard a song which I hadn't heard for many years. And I remembered it and thought, oh my God, that's where I really belonged. And I'd forgotten that. And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? And I just felt so sad, so much like I just didn't want to go to that meeting. But of course I did. And I don't remember the meeting, but I remember the feeling before the meeting. And it was a point, it was like, what am I doing? I'd become so interested in what I was doing for years, almost 10 years, but I'd forgotten who I was. And it was shortly after that my father passed away, and I wasn't treated the best way I could have been. So I decided to leave and start my own company. And that was a huge decision, huge, agonizing decision for me, because people thought I was a company man through and through. And yes, it had crossed my mind to start my own company, but I did. And yeah, it was a very liberating experience. Very liberating indeed. In fact, I kind of wondered why I hadn't done it sooner. It was a great time. I don't regret the time I spent working in the corporate world. I enjoyed it. I got something from it. It taught me a lot about myself. I believe I worked very hard and very diligently in it, and I believe helped a lot of people in doing that. But it just came time to move on, and I moved on and did it for myself, which I enjoyed greatly. And from that, I started noticing the trends when I was networking and marketing my business. I started noticing the trends in successful people, unsuccessful people, successful businesses, unsuccessful businesses. And I started doing what I'd done much younger, and that was modeling, the world of modeling. What I mean is modeling excellence. I started off loving aviation and modeling the traits of great pilots, then as great musicians, and then great business people. And that's when I started becoming a coach, a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, then master practitioner, and now a trainer. And one of the key parts of NLP is modeling success. And when I learned that, I thought, oh my God, I didn't realize I've been doing this all those years, but just didn't know what it was called. So I started to map things over. And it was another time, it was, while still loving what I was doing, it was Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. And I was at a good friend's house, and Christmas music was on, and there was a Christmas song that came on, and it reminded me of something which we weren't involved with in the music industry, But as we were going up the tree, the next step would have been to have been with these people. And these people released a song. And I hadn't heard the song for many years. And being very happy on Boxing Day, of an evening, my friend went to the kitchen. She went to the kitchen, and I remember sitting there just looking at the song, and I thought, oh my God, I'd forgotten who I once was. And tears were streaming down my face. And I thought, my God, what's going on? Where did this come from? And I was quite embarrassed. It was Boxing Day. Everyone's meant to be happy, and suddenly I'm there, the tears streaming down my face because I'd forgotten who Grant was, the kind of background he had come from. That was somewhere inside not being fulfilled. And the moment that happened, I started thinking, how can I bring that into what I do now? And I believe the game that I play in my business now, the way I show up with my clients, the way I connect with people and get breakthroughs increased from that day onwards. And it was by tapping back into who I was, where my soul, where my spirit was, which I'd forgotten or had to suppress over the years. By not suppressing it, by bringing it out and embracing it and layering it over everything I do, I think that really made a huge difference and helps me to help people in the way I do today. So certainly trying to find your true voice, and if you've anyone out there has hidden it, don't hide it, bring it out and get creative. How you can use that in whatever you're doing now will really enhance your life. And if you can't layer it into what you're doing now, perhaps, just perhaps, you could consider doing something different so that you can live a fulfilled life, you can live a fulfilled career, and you can help more people in the world. And that was just a story for me that I just wanted to share. Nomsa, have you got anything to say on that? Nick or Rachel, any thoughts around that? I just left you in silence. I don't know.
Who's going? Who's taking?
Go on, Nick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's, as we're all talking, telling our stories, it's a lot of times it's the painful stuff that ends up being the real, yeah, the thing that propels you forward and really ends up getting you on course. So it's just, yeah, it's interesting that we all have those parallels in our stories, and I think that's just important to just keep that in mind too. If you are going through some hard stuff, is that it's if you stay on your focus, you stay true to what feels good in your heart, and even if you are moving through some painful things, I think you are on the right path as long as you're in alignment with yourself, and you're acting from that place and not from that external validation or from your ego side. When you're just acting from your heart, even though shedding of those layers of your life is going to be painful at times, it's happening for you. And I just think of some examples in nature, and it's for me, it's like it's the butterfly, right? Like in that tight cocoon, it's just stuck in there, and it's then all of a sudden it's able to break its way out, and then beautiful wings unfurl. And I think that's a really a good example of what that process feels like or looks like in our real lives. And then I just wanted to touch on something that Grant talked about earlier, and it was the faking it, fake it till you make it. So I'll just tell a quick story. When I was still in policing, working in gang suppression, and my partner and I, we saw a car that was associated to an individual who wasn't a gang member himself, but hung around with gang members quite a bit. Anyways, so pulled over the car. I can't remember what traffic infraction it was. And so talking to the guy at the window and just checking all of his paperwork, making sure that the VIN number on the car matches, and like it's not a stolen car or anything like that. And the way the car was registered was different than what I was seeing in front of my eyes. So it was a Mercedes car, but on the registration it said it was one model, but then you look on the badging at the back of the car and it was something else. So I'm like trying to figure out what's going on with this car and doing all the checks that I can do to try and figure this out. And finally just went up to the door and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this says it's a C300 or whatever, but your car, it's an AMG. And he's like, fake it till you make it. So he'd done is he'd taken his basic Mercedes and he badged it like an AMG and put the AMG wheels and like just gone through to all these lengths to badge his car to make it look like something it's not. And I'll never forget that as he looked out his window, just kind of smiled up at me and said, fake it till you make it. And I just think, like, hilarious, but not a good way to live your life at all. Quite the opposite. And like for me, it's and not ironically at all, but so my company is called Flow State Designs, and so that flow in life and in nature, like that is just going with what's presented in front of you and not forcing life or any decision. It's just letting things happen. And I'm doing a course right now on Qigong, and this concept of Wu Wei was introduced to me here recently, and that's the art of non-action. It's a state of effortless flow. And so the opposite, of course, is moving with force and having like effort and resistance and all of that. And that's what I did for my entire life, because looking back now, obviously my career wasn't in alignment for me, and so I just forced my way through it. And what's interesting to me now looking back is that I was really good at it. It's something that I wasn't really in alignment with and really passionate about. And so I'm just super excited about the future and how the amazing things I can do with my life now that I am in alignment and now that I am passionate about what I'm doing and what I'm bringing into the world. And I just think, I'm just excited about the future.
I think also maybe for the listeners, it's good to just point out that the everyday decisions, the choices that we're making are showing whether or not are you being true to yourself or not. So, do you say no and you mean no? And when you say yes, do you mean yes? Or are you saying no and then doing the opposite, because that would be then not your true self? A thing that I've learned is to do what feels right rather than what I think is best for the situation, for the person or whatever, like what feels right for me. And knowing that every small choice that we are making, it's adding up, and all of those choices are either bringing you that little bit closer to your true self, or they're taking you a little bit further away from living your truths. And what do we need to do to be able to get closer to the true self? People might be asking, like, okay, well, it's all good talking about it, but how do I begin? Where do I start? And so it's identifying all of those things that light you up, all of those things, smile to your face, all of those things that get you excited. What is, that can be for people painting, singing, dancing, gardening, helping others, cooking, creating music, whatever, that artistic part of you. And then think about how can you incorporate all of those things into your daily life. It doesn't have to be that you have to do it every day, but as a general rule, we will often say things like, but I haven't got the time, or I haven't got the money, and we'll use those as excuses. And that's quite sad when you think about it, that you're going to deny yourself your own things that make you feel good and have pleasure because of something that you're saying is more important. And so as a general rule, I would say, some people talk about 80-20 rule, but at least go for the over 50% of your time during a day. You are doing stuff that you like. We've all got to do stuff that we don't like, but there is a difference between thinking I'm choosing to do something, or I'm having to do it. And you'll notice that the true self, you will start to always think, this is what I'm choosing to do, even the not the nice things. Whereas the further you're away from your true self, everything is I have to, you're a victim, and life seems like it's against you, etc., etc. So make time for yourself and align your behaviors and your activities according to what your true self is. And I think that coming back on that fake it till you make it is kind of where that concept has come from. But it's more about, whoever you are today and who self is not who it is today, then you've got to already get into the mind of the person that your true self is. And then you've got to start acting and doing and taking the decisions that self would do. And I think that's where that fake it, make it comes in. But you've got to do it. You've got to do it in a way that is true to you. So, yeah, I would just
absolutely,
say that.
No, I love that. I mean, there is a fine line. There is a fine divide with it. I'm a big believer in visualization, but then taking the real action at the end of it. Yeah, so but that's right. There's different ways of doing it, and with all of these things, there is not one way. There is not one way to do it. There are many different ways, to achieve what you want. But you just find the ones which are right for us. And again, that is being true to yourself. That's the whole emphasis of it. So for myself, I like to visualize things, absolutely visualize things as if you already have it. And I teach some classes on this stuff, and that's what I do. However, I always say to people, don't just sit back and just wait for it to happen. The attitude of gratitude, and if it comes to the secret and those things, that's great. But they work an awful lot better with some real action attached to it. And even if it's imperfect action, remembering that version 1 is better than version none. Don't procrastinate, just do it and edit the process as you go. Build the aeroplane in the sky, as they say. Get it done, be real, go out there and do it, but still visualize that ultimate goal. Because unless your mind knows what it's really looking for, it's very unlikely to find it. And if it does, it will be by accident. But it's much better to live your life on purpose. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's that. Nick?
I'm gonna read something from my journal that I wrote back in October, and it's called Gentle Reminder. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself compassion. Be patient as you learn and grow. Love yourself. You are doing your best, and I'm proud of who you are. You are strong and resilient. Don't get overwhelmed by anything. Just take small steps in the right direction while following your guidance and intuition, and all will be revealed to you. I am grateful for you, every last aspect, quality, and detail. Thank you for all the work you are putting in so we can meet someday soon. I love you. I'm proud of you. Thank you. From your highest self. So I wrote that just sort of I don't know if it was like a channeled thing or what, but it just really rings true even now is just keep going and don't get overwhelmed by anything. Just keep on doing what is in alignment and what feels good to you.
That's lovely. That's a brilliant download you had there, Nick. That's fantastic. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing, Nick. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I thought I've muted myself. I was calling my children, telling them to shoot you.
You got that.
Yeah, and for me, like this, like journaling, for example, was something that I never did, and it turns out that I'm pretty good at it. And it's like I was just, I don't know, ignoring it, or because that isn't something that's maybe that cool to do in police. Probably is like to express your feelings and and reflect and whatnot. And whereas now I'm just, if it feels good, and a lot of times journaling just feels good to me, and where I would have got in my own way and stopped myself in the past, now I just let it flow.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you're picking up on this aspect of feeling, because for me that is, you know, if you only ever had one thing that you could leave this world with, and you wanted to leave one teaching, for me it would be really like follow things. Your feelings will direct you in the right place if you follow what is feeling good. And if you don't feel good, then there is a reason for that, and it's telling you, it's showing you that you've gone off track, you've gone off, you know, your the direction for your North Star. Your North Star can be your true self, because everything is going inward. Again, the North Star isn't something external. And so that feeling aspect, if the listeners want to take anything away from this, is follow that feeling. If it's a good feeling, you're going in the right direction. Simple as that.
I'm with you on that, Rachel. Feelings are good. Yeah, your instinct has known you for a long time, and it tends to guide you pretty well. Believe it. That's good. That's good. Great session.
Don't listen so much to this, right?
Yeah.
It has its uses, but if you're letting that dictate how you're going to feel, you're going to go off down some creepy path that is not going to be very pleasant.
Yeah. Creepy path. Listen to the heart brain, right? Listen to the heart brain. Yes.
So, any words of encouragement, Rachel, before we go, or that was your words of encouragement?
That will be my words of encouragement.
What was that?
Nick, please, words of encouragement. Hi, Nick, can you hear me?
Sorry, it keeps freezing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're not freezing on the video.
Okay. Yeah, it must be on my end. Sorry about that. So yeah, I would just say, I mean, I've kind of touched on everything I think I wanted to say for the most part. I would just encourage people to just follow what feels good, and stop worrying about what other people think so much, and draw those boundaries, and choose yourself, and that self-love. Have a self-love routine. I look in the mirror every day, and I say I love you. I'm proud of you. You can do and be anything you want. And I look at myself in my eyes while I do that. And I've been doing that for what's a little over a year now, and so it's like little things like that. And then for me, it just opens up those gates of the intuition and the guidance. It just comes in a lot clearer when you're more in touch, and then when you actually listen to that guidance too, when you do get that feeling like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I need to say no to that person, then you say yes anyways because of the programming. That will weaken your connection and your intuition, because the universe is giving you all this guidance, and then you're not listening, and so you end up going down the wrong path. But when you start listening, it feels like it just comes in stronger, and it's very interesting. Life certainly isn't without its bumps, but it's heading down the right path, and it feels really good.
Okay, maybe I'll jump in there, and thanks for that, Nick. And for me, finding and living your own truth. If you haven't already found your own truth, or perhaps if you did in the past, just take some quiet time for yourself and remember the time where you was closest to living your own truth, where you felt that you was more in line with your soul, with your purpose. Remember that time. Remember the way you felt. Remember any sights or sounds or feelings that were present at that time, because these are modalities that will really help you to understand how you feel when you're living at your best, when you're living closer to your purpose, or in other words, when you're closest to living your own truth. Look at those, see if you can magnify them, or if you're living those in your real life now, and if you're not, where you're not. Because that will be an idea, an area where you can grow, change, or adapt. And as always, if any of us can help you further with that, you know where to find us. Please reach out. We'd love to help you. So that's my words of encouragement. Look inside. Remember a time when you were living your truth, or when you was closest to it. Look at the modalities, what it felt like, what it smelt like, what it sounded like. Notice where that is in your life. Notice where that's not in your life now. They will be indicators of where you can implement the change. And above all, don't fake it. Make it a reality. Just make it. Shape it while you make it. That's my thought. Over to you, Nomsa.
Thank you so much, Granty. Thank you so much, Rachel and Nick. I really appreciate your words of encouragement to our audience. For me, basically, is never seek approval or validation, like what Rachel said before. Basically, people will tell you that you can't be this, you can't be this. Know that if you can tolerate the change, if you can have the courage to become the person that you want to become, living in your own truth and embracing it, and basically enjoying the life that God created you to be, not what you are expected to be by family members or the community. Just live your life how you want to be. And if you feel that you are talented, just get on with it. Learn whatever you believe that you can do it, and just learn the skills and look at the people that you admire and look at what they do, their characters, their image. Create your own image based on your inner self, and inner voice will help you to become that person. And know that God loves you, and you don't need anyone to affirm who you are. You don't need anyone to tell you that your dreams are too big or too small. Just become who you want to become. Only you can make that happen. And we are here at Nkositalkshows Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. And please, if you want to get in touch with Rachel, you can follow Rachel on her social media. And all the links are on YouTube and Facebook. And you can follow Nick on his social media and Grant on his social media. If you can't connect with them on their social media, please get in touch with me on my website, or there's an email, there's a phone number there. So get in touch, and just let's see where we can help you find your own voice and lead from within. Live with grace, everyone, and God bless.